If you want to transform fear and scarcity into abundance, you have to first become aware of what is fear and scarcity, what is actually causing that in your life.
And so just mourn the loss in advance. It's not going to kill you. And at the end of the day, it might actually make you stronger. The worst case scenario, in my opinion, is actually just not expressing your truth and just doing something that's not aligned.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, weekly NLU live podcast. Week number 104. 2 years straight, every single week. It has gone by unreasonably fast. For week number 104, we are going to talk about transforming fear and scarcity into abundance. Alan, go on, my friend.
So Kevin and I last week were thinking about what we wanted to do this week so that we could prepare in advance. And we were talking about people's decision-making paradigm and how many of your decisions are predicated on fear. That's the frame that we want to talk to you about today. And what I can promise you, and I was thinking about it before this, what do I want to promise right out of the gate? I want to promise that what you hear on this live podcast is going to help you improve the quality of your life. Because the quality of your life really won't improve unless you can improve the quality of yourself. And what holds us all back is fear. Scarcity, fear, anxiety, stress. It's all predicated on not believing in ourselves enough, not believing in what's possible, maybe not having the skills we need or the resources we need. And so if you're out there and you fear what your parents think of you, or you fear posting on social media, or you're afraid to give that keynote or to give that speech or to start that podcast or to start that business or to open that dog shelter.
Damn right.
Mm-hmm. That's fear and scarcity running. That's fear and scarcity holding you back from what is truly possible. And if you transform that fear and scarcity into abundance, the whole world opens up to you. And that is our goal. We're not going to change your entire life in this one episode. What we are going to do, though, is open up your reticular activating system, open up your mind to new possibilities. We're going to change the trajectory. That's the goal. Shift the trajectory just a little bit. Get you to live a little bit more in abundance and a little bit less in fear. And that really can, over the long run, change everything.
Especially in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of scarcity and there's been a lot of fear and there's been a lot of uncertainty. So I think we're talking about this at an appropriate time. I had a client a couple of years ago, and when this client and I began to work together, one of the first things she said, even before we started, was, "I'm not sure if I can afford it." And I said, "Well, let me tell you this. One of my main focuses is going to be helping you make more money. If this is something you want to do, let me know." And she ended up saying yes. We started to work together. She ended up using Next Level Podcast Solutions. And one of the second things, or I think the second thing we talked about, was upping our equipment. So maybe we should get a new camera. Maybe we should get a new microphone. We should probably upgrade our equipment. And that same story came up. "I'm not really sure if I can afford that." I said, "Okay, we'll see what happens. Let's just run with what we have." And I got to know this person at a pretty deep level, and we had some very, very powerful, very impactful, very vulnerable conversations. And one day I said, "You and I talk a lot about money, and we've talked about sales and getting clients and becoming more financially free. How much money do you have in your bank account right now?" And I said, I will show you, screenshot and show you how much I have. I said, "Honestly, I bet you probably have more than I do." And this person said, "No way. No way. There's no chance I have more money than you did." And I said, "All right, let me see." And in that time, she wasn't ready to do it. I said, "No worries, no pressure, no stress." We get on the next coaching call. And she said, "Kev, you're going to be so proud of me. After the last call, I checked my bank account, my business bank account. And I have not checked this in like 3 years or 4 years." And I said, "That is so awesome. I am so, so, so proud of you. Were you happy with the number you saw?" And she said, "Yeah, I had close to $20,000 in my business bank account." And I said, "You definitely have more money than I have in my bank account, as promised." And everything started to shift a little bit for this person. She had to figure out what was real. See, so many of her decisions, so much of her belief, so much of her scarcity, her fear was based on something that was not even real. It was imagined. all of the decisions she made were incorrect because she thought she had way less money than she actually did. If she looked at that bank account 4 years prior and she tracked that bank account every single day, she would have certainty. And that certainty for her would have brought more abundance. So many of us are living our lives in many regards with our heads buried in the sand. There's the meme out there all the time of, it's like a scared face when you go to check your bank account. And I think a lot of us have that scarcity. We have that fear, but avoiding the issue is not going to make it better. It's actually going to make it far, far, far worse. Think of this. You get a text message from a friend, and I'm guilty of this for sure. You get a text message from a friend, and you don't answer it the first day. You don't answer it the second day. You don't answer it the third day. You can't run from it forever. And you start to get that fear. You start to get that scarcity of, oh man, this person's not going to like me. I can't respond to it now. Right? If I respond to it now, they're going to think I was ignoring them. Your problems will not go away if you run away from them. So we have to figure out what is actually real. In this example, this person did not have any cause to be as financially scarce as they were. They're actually way more abundant than the population. And that person's life was lived through that lens. Every decision would have been different. Every interaction would have been different. Every opportunity would have been different. Every conversation could have been different if this person just figured out what was real. So for you out there right now, are you running from? Are you hiding from? Are you just uncertain or unaware of what's actually real in your life? If you want to transform fear and scarcity into abundance, you have to first become aware of what is fear and scarcity. What is actually causing that in your life?
Speaking of living in what's real, I remember when I was in my early 20s, I was about to move to Los Angeles. And I lived in Los Angeles, for those of you who don't know, for like 3 or 4 months. But prior to that, my group of friends and I all got together. We went to the beach. It was like a going away beach party. And someone I grew up with and I decided to play, what would you call this? It's kind of like chicken. Who can swim out the farthest without getting too scared of sharks? So we're swimming out, and we're like, we grew up on water, we grew up on a lake together as little boys, and we are both really strong swimmers, and so we're going out there, and the beach is shrinking into the background for sure, and it's definitely an ego thing at this point of like, okay, who's gonna stop? And he playfully and very unkindly, he pretended to get bit by a shark and go under. Okay. I was already petrified, if I'm honest with myself. But after that, he stayed for a long time below, and I was freaking out. I've actually since reflected on this. So anyone who's ever been at the beach, you're probably scared of sharks. You've probably been in the tide, and you've probably seen something, maybe a fish or seaweed or something, and been like, it's a very natural fear. Okay, maybe you're not a mile out from the beach and then you have your friend pretend to get eaten by a shark. That's a whole nother level. But we all are afraid of sharks. We're supposed to be. When we're not the top of the food chain, human mind messes with you. So I looked it up once, and Kevin and I re-looked it up just to make sure it was true right before this episode. You want to talk about an imagined fear. If you were to ask yourself how many people per year in the United States, and we just looked it up in the U.S. because we live in the U.S., how many people per year in the United States die of a fatal shark attack? If you were to guess, what's your guess? Okay, everyone think of their guess. Kev, go ahead. You know the answer, so don't. Okay, it's 1 per year on average. Now, all of you who know my story know that when I was 26 years old, I got in a really bad car accident, and that really transformed my life. And my father passed away in a car accident when I was 2 years old. So, the tragedy of car accidents and what that can do from a fatality perspective has never been any mystery to me. And so I looked it up. I remember after my car accident, I looked it up. I wanted to know how many people pass away in fatal motor vehicle accidents. And I remember back when I looked it up, it was, I think, like 2015, and I think it was 44,000 per year back then. And that includes motorcycles and all that as well. But I looked it up again today before this speech because I wanted to compare the one shark death per year to the 38,000 motor vehicle deaths in the U.S. alone per year. We get into our car every single day. We throw on our seatbelt, we think nothing of it, heading to the gym, heading to work, whatever. But yet we're petrified swimming in the ocean. It's not rational. Fears are so unreasonably irrational. Your chances of dying in your car that you get into without thinking every single day are statistically 38,000 times more likely than when you're swimming in the ocean. So my point here is think rationally based on real data, real statistics. That's number one. If you want to transform fear and scarcity into abundance, people say knowledge is power. Knowledge is abundance because it takes away fear and scarcity. Even just knowing only one shark death per year will help you just a little bit. You're still going to be afraid, just like me, next time you're in the ocean. Okay? But you're going to be a little less afraid knowing that statistically speaking, you're totally fine.
When we went to Florida with Emilia and Bianca, Alan went in the water, and I was thinking to myself, I can't sit on the beach. I got to go in the water. I got to take my chances here. And I'm still here. I'm still here to talk about it. So I remember back when I was living in Worcester, this was somewhat early in our journey together, Alan. Alan texted me and said, "Hey, Kev, what do you got going on tonight?" And I said, "Nothing. I think I'm just hanging around." "Why, what's up?" And he said, "So we got invited to a private island party." And I said, "What are you talking about, man? What do you mean? What are you talking about?" And he said, "So there's a little island down in Cape Cod. We're going to go down there. Somebody I know, they're having this private party. It's a great chance to meet other people. We can talk about the podcast. Maybe we'll get some podcast listeners out of it." And my initial reaction, as with most things, was this is not going to happen. I'm not going to do this. But I ended up saying yes. And I think I picked Alan up. We drove down to the Cape, and I remember we were driving through security, and they said, "What's the password?" And I said, "What's the password?" And we gave him a password, and we got in. We got right in, and then we went to this house. The whole time, I'm playing this in my head of what is this experience going to be like? What am I going to talk about? How am I going to introduce myself to people? Is this going to be, are we going to get abducted? What's going to happen here? I have no idea. But the whole time I was thinking to myself, what is the best case? What is the worst case? And what is the most probable case? What are the scenarios that are possible here? And that is something that the Air Force does. Alan told me it was the Air Force. I thought it was in a book. I want to give credit to the proper channels. But the best case scenario was, and I try to be very, very specific, like almost too specific. The best case scenario is Alan and I meet a mentor who believes in us, takes us under their wing, and helps us change the world. That's the best case. Worst case scenario, probably something terrible happens and Alan and I get abducted or something. Like that's pretty much the worst case scenario. Because I want to be realistic. In my mind, I could say the worst case scenario is I go up to somebody and I introduce myself and they laugh at me. But in the grand scheme of things, that's really not that big of a deal. It's not huge. It's not a huge deal. And then the last thing is the most probable case. The most probable case that I came up with was Alan and I will go. It will most likely be very awkward. That's most likely what's going to happen. I'll have a couple times where I get insecure, but there will be plenty of opportunity for me to get out of my comfort zone and talk to people who I'm most likely never going to speak with again. And that is exactly what happened. I met some people. I had some good conversations. There was some really good food, bacon wrapped scallops, which I had never had before. I'm not a huge fan, but they were pretty good in the moment. But that was a great opportunity for me to get out of my own head. I do this pretty often, honestly. What is the best case? What is the worst case? What is the most probable case? I did it in Florida, Alan. When you went into the water and you went swimming and Bianca and Emilia were like, "Hey, are you going to go in?" And I was like, "No, I'm not going to go in. Thank you." I thought to myself, what is the best case scenario? We go and we have an awesome time that we talk about later. And this is something that I remember forever. The worst case is I get jawsed. And I get taken out to sea. The most probable case is Alan and I have a good time swimming and we talk about it later. And that most probable case happened. So if you live your life through that lens, I don't know if Alan, you talked about statistics. What is really going to happen here? What are the odds of me getting eaten by a shark? Pretty low. And if I didn't run that through my head, I may never have gone to that island party. I may never have gone to the Brendan Burchard event. I may never have lived in Florida for a month with a mentor, if I didn't run best case, worst case, most probable through my head. I tell clients to do that all the time because I think we do get in our way. We allow our fears and our scarcity to dictate the opportunity to actually find abundance. And again, many of our fears, much of the scarcity is actually imagined.
Which one of those does your mind naturally go to?
Me?
Yeah.
Worst case. Always. I know that there's only one shark attack, but what if I'm the one? There's only one of me. That's plenty.
That's funny.
That's plenty.
Okay. I appreciate your honesty on that.
Yeah, of course.
What about now? Is that still the case?
I try to think most probable now. I try to think most probable because I know that more often than not, if it's worst case, it's my fear talking. Because I try to, again, worst case for me on a plane is a plane crash. It's not it getting delayed or there being turbulence. It's me not coming home. That's the worst case. The odds of that happening are, again, very, 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 very low. But it's hard to get, what?
How low are the odds? Because I know you looked this up, right?
I can look it up.
Okay.
I'll look it up while you do your next point.
So point number 2, again, transforming fear and scarcity into abundance. Mourn the potential loss in advance. So for a long time, I remember I had like 3 clients, then I had 5 clients, then I had 10 clients, and eventually it was like 15, 16, 17 clients. Now I'm up to like 25, but 5 of them are like an actual business with an entire team, so technically only 21 because one of them is an entire business. But my point here is that as I was transitioning up that ladder from the next level, from the last level to the next level, I remember I told myself, and I said, you know what, honestly, I don't like weekly that much. There's only certain clients that I do weekly coaching for. And I remember I had one client who's been with me for years at this point, and I remember my prices have increased since then, and this person, I never increased the price. And one of the reasons was fear and scarcity. This is a dear friend of mine, and I was afraid that she would be upset with me if I told her the truth about, like, I don't really want to coach weekly anymore unless it's at this new price point. And honestly, it doesn't feel fair to me that someone else is paying this price while you're paying this price. It's out of integrity. And so I ended up sending her an audio, and I said, listen, I hope you don't take this as a slight, but I've tried coaching monthly, I've tried coaching weekly, and I've tried coaching bi-weekly, and in my opinion, I enjoy bi-weekly best. Monthly, it's like I haven't caught up with you in a month. I feel too disconnected to really add as much value as I could. Weekly, it feels like drinking from a fire hose every single week. It's like you didn't even have time to implement what we talked about last time. And so I said, I would really like to transition you to bi-weekly. And I knew this person valued me. I knew this person loved me. I knew this person loved the coaching. And I knew this person needed the guidance and needed the coaching. And I knew this person just got out of a tough relationship and maybe didn't have a ton of extra revenue. So not only am I going to coach you bi-weekly instead of weekly now, in other words, twice a month instead of 4 times a month, but on top of that, I've got to increase the price. And so I was really scared to send this message, okay? And so here's how I did it. Sort of like what Kevin just said, best case, worst case, most probable case. What I did is I mourned the loss in advance. I said, okay, worst case scenario is that this person I lose as a client, which sucks because I love coaching this person. And this person is mad at me and not as good of a friend in the future. And I said, you know what? The chances of that are really low. But if that were to happen, I'd still be okay. I'd still have a bunch of other clients. I'd still have other revenue. And at least I'd be in integrity. And so I sent the audio. It turned out totally fine. She's like, I totally understand. And now we're on bi-weekly for the higher price point. It's never as bad as you think it's going to be. You just have to mourn the loss in advance. You have to be like, okay, you know, God forbid I lose this client. What's really going to happen to me? Okay, well, I'll have to go get another client. Let's say this friend gets mad at me. What's the worst case scenario? Okay, they send an audio back or a text back saying you're mean or whatever. It's not as bad as you think, and you kind of have to mourn the potential loss in advance. The chances are you won't lose the friend, you won't lose the client, but if you mourn the loss in advance and contemplate in advance what it would be like to lose that client, you're going to prepare yourself in advance for the worst case scenario. So hope for the best. Prepare for the worst. That's why Kevin and I work well as a team, because his natural is to go to worst case scenario. My natural is to go to best case scenario. And that's why he over preps. And a lot of times I'm maybe late or unprepared. So what we try to do is be in the center. We call it a drive to 5. some people are optimists, some people are pessimists, some people are right in the middle, and they are optimistic but prepared. And that's really what we want you to be as well. And so just mourn the loss in advance. It's not going to kill you. And at the end of the day, it might actually make you stronger. The worst case scenario, in my opinion, is actually just not expressing your truth and just staying doing something that's not aligned.
Alan, what's something right now that you, upon reflection and talking about it, think is not going to be as bad as you believe right now? I know that was a terribly formed question, but you know what I'm saying.
I do know what you're saying. What's not going to be as bad as I thought? I think when fear is driving, it's always going to the worst case, and which is fascinating right now. What I know is not going to be as bad as I thought is I sent a challenging audio message to one of my clients earlier today, and she responded with another audio message, and I seriously doubt that audio message is as bad as I think. I'm sure it's very loving and kind, and I'm sure we're good. But there's a part of me that's in fear and scarcity that is like, oh no, like, is she still going to be my friend? Is she still going to be our client? Is it all good? And so most likely it's nothing but love and abundance, honestly.
Yeah.
So group coaching was definitely an experience for me. It's something that I had never been involved with before, any kind of coaching aspect in my life. I wasn't really sure what to expect. So I was hugely skeptical when I signed up, and getting into the group and getting to know the people was really, really cool. Everybody's kind of moving towards the same goal. And I definitely started to see the value in what Kevin and Alan were presenting to us. PPT for me was something that was really huge. I was looking for a system to help me kind of keep track of the things that I had to do every day to make sure that I was productive. So I definitely saw the value in that right away, deconstructing your goals and finding out what you need to do to get there. And then laying it out and tracking it every single day. For me, that was huge, and it's something that I saw the value in even after the program was over. So I really enjoyed seeing everybody's growth and watching everybody kind of move in the same direction at the same time. Having that group chat on WhatsApp is hugely beneficial. If you're scared, or if you're struggling, or if you're having a great day, it's just always there, and we were always able to plug into the chat, and we were talking to each other on our weeks off, and I feel like I got so much value out of it, and I am so grateful that I took the leap and I decided to join.
I remember some of the deepest conversations we ever had, Alan, were in the studio, back when we went to the studio every week. I remember Alan used to get in front of the whiteboard, and when we were talking about stuff, he would draw out a diagram or whatever it may be, depending on what we were talking about. And one day we were talking about finances. And I said, Alan, I don't know what the hell's going on, man. At this time, I think I was making like $7,000 or $8,000 a month. And Alan and I were not combined yet as a business, so we each were doing our own coaching thing. And I said, I'm making $8,000 a month. I don't know where it's all going. Every time I get to the end of the month, I don't have any money left. I don't know what's going on. And Alan drew out this diagram for me, and he said, Kev, back when you were making $100,000 back in the day, did you have more money? And I said, yeah, I had a little bit more, but I was still spending a lot. And he raised my awareness to a pattern that I have been living with since I was probably at a young child, I would say. Ever since I got my first job, I was always spending more money, or at least as much money as I was earning. And when he raised my awareness to this pattern, it helped me shift that pattern. And now everything is a little bit different. So when Alan explained that to me, I was able to focus on the deeper lesson. I think a lot of us have scarcity and fear around similar things. And when we have scarcity and fear around them, we have the same behaviors. So very similar to the first point I made, figuring out what's real, you have to check in with what are the patterns that are running your life and why are they actually running your life. I had to be vulnerable, and I had to be courageous and say to Alan, hey, what do you think is going on here? Why do you think this is happening? And Alan was very helpful in that moment, but that was very challenging for me to do. It took a level of vulnerability. It took a level of courage to say, hey, can you take a look behind the scenes here and let me know why I am constantly feeling broke, even though I'm making more money than I ever have? So you have to get a grip and an understanding on the patterns that you're running, because many of the patterns you're running are getting you the scarcity. They're getting you the lack of abundance. They're getting you the fear. And until you at least become aware of them and start to break them, then you can actually make progress. But I think there's so many of those that are running under the radar behind the scenes that we started when we were younger. And if you don't get another perspective, ask people around you, hey, where do you notice me being super scarce? Where do you notice me being the most fearful? What does that look like from your perspective? And just get a different idea about the patterns that you're running. I think oftentimes the people around us know our patterns better than us, because to us, it just becomes normal.
To us, it definitely becomes normal. This actually ties very well into my next point, which most of the time, it's actually trauma or conditioning. Most of the time, fear and scarcity is something that is trauma or conditioning. So after my car accident at 26, I'll tell this briefly, the snowbanks were covering the yield signs, and I was supposed to yield and I didn't. I ended up on the wrong side of the road, and there was what I thought was a Mack truck in front of me. It ended up being a lift-kitted pickup truck. So fortunately, I was okay because I was driving a really, really safe car. I used to call this car the Tank. It was a German-engineered Volkswagen Passat. But I remember after that, double yellow lines messed me up. I would drive, and I was still driving for work because I was a traveling sales engineer, and I had a territory, Vermont, Western Mass, and Connecticut. And I remember I would get pulled over because I was too far on the right side of the road, because I was so scared and scarce and in fear of being on the wrong side of the road again. And I remember I got pulled over like 3 or 4 times, and I told the police officers, I said, I'm so sorry. I know I was too far on the right side of the road. I got in a bad car accident recently on the wrong side of the road, so the double yellow lines are messing with me. I'll be safer. I'm sorry. And they were always super kind, which was great. I actually popped my tire a couple times, Kev, because when you're on the right side, there's usually nails and glass and all that kind of thing. And so it really messed with me. And now, fast forward again, Emilia and I were actually headed to Vermont this past weekend. We had a little getaway cabin on an orchard. It was awesome. And on the way home, I said, sweetheart, if I'm a little bit scarce or acting weird at all, just know in advance it's nothing personal. This is the road that I used to drive on when I used to go up to Vermont. So one of my main customers back then, I sold industrial automation equipment, was actually GE. They create jet engine turbines, and I sold equipment that would like measure them to the micron level. It's a whole thing. But I used to travel there all the time, and I used to be pumped because one of my other customers was Ben & Jerry's, Kev. Mm-hmm. And I used to come home with big bags of free Ben & Jerry's. It was great. I gotta test these out with our equipment back in the office, right? Just come home with bags of Ben & Jerry's. It was the best. But anyways, so I used to travel on that road all the time, and I told Emilia, I said, if I'm feeling scarce, it's because my subconscious, the trauma, I remember the trauma. I was so unhappy at that job. And Kev, I know you get these feels when we travel as well, because you used to travel all the time. Your body remembers. And so the fear and scarcity might not even be conscious. It might just be something that you revert to whenever you're in that environment. And so just that's something to keep in mind as well. And as long as you're aware of it, of like, oh, okay, I'm on this same road again, and I used to be very scarce and I really miserable. Maybe I'm going to revert back to that, and I might get unkind or whatever, or triggered. So let me warn Emilia in advance so that I'm less scarce. That's exactly how you transform fear and scarcity into abundance. You have awareness, you have self-awareness, and then you just ask for support.
I had a very similar experience when Tara and I went to northern New Hampshire. Yeah. We were running a little behind in the morning, and she's like, you're right, I'm so sorry. You said we were going to be late. And I said, honestly, babe, I don't care about being late. I just apologies in advance because I get very anxious when we travel. Anytime the suitcase comes out and I start packing, I get anxious and I don't want to say triggered, but I have the mini flashbacks of what it used to be like to live on the road. Again, for those who don't know, I lived on the road for 10 months out of 12 months, 1 year. Every single week, I was living hotel to hotel. It was brutal. All right. So Alan and I think for episode 34, we're lucky enough to interview Lori Harder. Do you know if it was 34?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I remember because you wanted to jump out the window.
I wanted to jump out the window. It was the first floor, so I wouldn't have gotten very injured, but I would have had a chance to run away, and that is what I wanted to do. After we interviewed Lori Harder, At the end of the interview, so for those of you who aren't podcasters, usually the person will hang around for a couple minutes. You'll talk and you can see what's going on in their life. Sometimes they invite you places. Sometimes they'll say they'll send you books or whatever. And Lori said, I'm actually going to be in Boston in a few months. I'm doing my book tour for A Tribe Called Bliss, is the name of it?
Yeah.
And she said, you guys should come. And Al and I were talking about it, and it was like, I don't know if this is for us. It's going to be a room filled with women. I don't know if we can handle this, but we wanted to support Lori. So when the day came, Alan and I went to Boston. We were definitely running behind because I remember we got lost and we couldn't find parking. But in Alan and I walk in a room filled with probably 250, 300 women. It's literally, in terms of men, I think there was Alan, myself, and maybe two other, and I think Lori's husband, Chris Harder, was there as well. And this was unreasonably challenging. This was super, super, super fear-chasing for me. But I said to Alan, I need to ask a question. In order for me to get out of the fear of being in this room, I need to go above and beyond. I want to ask a question. So I raised my hand. I don't remember the question. It was probably not a good one. At the end of the day, Alan and I go up to Lori. She signs our books, and we get an opportunity to take a picture with her. I dropped my book like 3 times, and she laughed at me, not at me, but with me. And it was very, very, very challenging. It was a very uncomfortable day, driving into Boston, going to see Lori, getting laughed at, asking a probably not valuable question, but I was fear chasing. If you live on the other side of your fear forever, so many things are going to seem impossible to you. Speaking on stage is going to seem impossible if you always live behind that filter. Going and asking a question in front of 250 people seems impossible until you do it. Now, fast forward, Taryn was kind enough to take me and buy me tickets to Simon Sinek in New York, and there was probably, I don't know, there might have been 1,000 people there. I don't remember. But I told Taryn, same thing, same conversation. When we go see Simon Sinek tonight, I have to ask a question. And she said, oh, what do you want to ask him? And I said, I don't know. I don't even want to ask him anything. I just have to. I have to ask him a question. And I sat in line for a half hour. And when I got the opportunity, I asked him some question, and he kind of laughed at me a little bit. But that's okay. It probably wasn't the best question. But that proved to me that I can do this. Every time I get on stage, it proves to me that I can do this. Every time we do a live, it proves to me that I can do this. So many of our fears are the things that stop us from expanding. And if you believe that fear for the rest of your life, it becomes reality. My grandmother, shout out to Mima, said to me, Kev, I could never speak on stage. That's so brave of you. And I said, Mima, I felt the same way 5 years ago. If my grandmother believed she could speak on stage, maybe she would be a speaker. If she ever got out of her comfort zone a little bit and realized, oh, you know what? This isn't as bad as I thought, then maybe she would have a career in speaking, but that's not something she ever did. So fear chasing is something that is going to help you transform your fear into something that you realize isn't that scary. There's a scene in Home Alone, for those of you who don't know Home Alone, one of the best Christmas movies of all time, where the main character, Kevin McAllister, is doing laundry down in the basement, and the boiler is like a monster to him. And eventually he gets brave and confident and realizes that that's all made up. It's all in his head. I think a lot of our fears are like that too. And one of the ways to expand that zone is to face your fears consistently. And again, when you're doing it, say this to yourself: best case, worst case, most probable. What is the best case scenario? Lori Harder loves us and comes back on the show. Worst case, again, something terrible. Most probable, it's going to go fine. And it usually does go fine, to Alan's point.
So I want everyone to imagine 2 different versions of Kev. Okay? Let's say one version of Kevin never fear-chased, never asked those questions to Lori Harder or Simon Sinek, never had the courage to co-host events, never spoke on stage with Evan Carmichael, never interviewed Lori Harder, Chris Harder, Steven Kotler, Dean Graziosi, never did 900 episodes, never fear-chased at all, just stayed in his comfort zone. Okay? That version of Kevin, now imagine, gets thrown into that room of 300 women and me and him, and he's ready to ask a question. See, the question that he asks is probably going to be very scarce. He's probably going to stutter. He's not going to speak well. He's going to be so anxious before and after, and he might get made fun of. He might look bad. Now imagine the version of Kevin who gets thrown in that room right now. it's going to be no problem. He just got done speaking on the stage, never mind asking a question from the audience. His personal development set point, I can't talk. His personal development set point has raised. It's like the thermostat in your home. When you get outside your comfort zone, it raises the set point. It makes it so that so here's the thing, right? I think of it this way. There's awareness, there's capabilities, and there's skills. Kevin has more awareness of how to ask a great question and what questions to ask. He has more skills at asking questions and speaking and oratory. And he's just a more capable, well-developed human, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Of course, this version of Kevin is going to have no problem. That's going to be a cakewalk. Versus the other version of Kevin might not even show up in that room. Raise your personal development set point in advance. I have a client, he was a client, not a client anymore, world-class speaker. Used to practice for 15 minutes a day. Used to literally look up a word randomly. It was like a random word generator. I think one of them was sidewalk. And he used to riff on sidewalk and how that means to him and what that means to him and tell a story about him walking down a sidewalk. Used to riff by himself in the mirror for 15 minutes a day, every single day. That person steps on stage. They're going to crush it compared to someone who doesn't even believe they can be a speaker and isn't practicing. Practice in private where you want to shine in public. Practice in private where you want to shine in public. If you want to transform fear and scarcity into abundance, just go get ridiculously good at stuff. If you were an unbelievable car mechanic, you're not going to be in fear and scarcity when your car breaks down. You're going to know how to fix it. If you're a ridiculously good orator and speaker, and you've read dozens of books on speaking, and you've given 150 speeches, and you've podcasted all over the world, and you've been coaching for years, you're not going to freak out when you get the chance to coach a new client because you're prepared. Prepare in advance. Prepare in private for where you want to shine in public. And then you won't be in fear and scarcity when the opportunity does come. I didn't realize this early on, Kev, but now I understand. Some of the people that are not putting in the reps behind the scenes, Kevin and I have been a little bit blown away at how challenging it can be sometimes to get people onto our podcast. And I think we used to believe, it's because we're not valuable enough. It's like we're not successful enough. It must be the branding, or maybe it's because they think we're a couple bodybuilder bros, which might be the case. What it really is I think they're intimidated. I honestly think they're scared. It's like, it makes sense now. It's like if you haven't done 900 episodes, you might be afraid to, what questions are they going to ask? Am I going to be able to hang? Stephen Kotler and Evan Carmichael and, all these other people, Dean Graziosi, they're not afraid to come on our show. They've done speeches all over the world. They've done thousands of episodes, all that. Whereas someone else who's brand new, Kev, they might be just like you were. They might be just scared to come on and be asked questions. They might not know the answers. I know a lot of people who have come on our show have asked for the questions in advance. And the reason why is they're scared. They're just scared. They want certainty. Create certainty with capabilities. Create certainty with awareness. Create certainty with skills. Our website developer, if we say, hey, we need to change for the website, Alessandro's got us. It's one message away and he can fix it. So you can create abundance from actual skills, actual capabilities, actual awareness. When you know how to succeed, you're not going to live in fear and scarcity the moment something goes wrong.
One of the skills that I don't have is one Alan was just talking about, and that is anything mechanical. I don't know how to fix cars. A couple of years ago, my car started to have a bunch of issues. I needed new brakes. I needed new rotors. I think I needed new calipers. So I called a mechanic, and I think it was like $800. And I was like, this is unreal. So I said, all right, throw it on a credit card. We're going to deal with that later. And then something happened with my engine. And I remember I called a mechanic. He came and looked at it. It cost like $300 for him to come look at it. And then I had to go see a specialist. And he said, here's your problem. You need a new turbo and a new engine. I said, all right. And Alan, I think you'll remember this because I was in the studio. And I said, how much is that going to cost? And he was like, that'll be like $9,000. And I said, wait, what? $9,000? And he said, yep. And I said, how much can I get for the car? And he said, I think he said $1,500 or something. But in that time, I was filled with fear. I was filled with scarcity. I did not know what I was going to do because I wasn't making much money at that time. A few years ago, it wasn't like it is today. And I remember one of the things I doubled down on was learning about sales, learning about money, and learning about business. And those days were some of the most important days for our business and Next Level Podcast Solutions particularly, because I had necessity. I think a lot of us out there are focused on the problem, and that's okay. You have to focus on the problem first, but then you have to become solution focused. My problem was lack of money, 100%. What is the solution? Find a way to make more money. I mean, you have this opportunity. You have a podcast. You have hundreds of thousands of listens. You have, at that point, 400, 500, 600 episodes. This is a great opportunity to make more money. So I use that necessity to create a new skill, like Alan just talked about. And that was the jumping off point long before we were making multiple six figures. That was one of the reasons we, myself particularly, I'll speak for myself, is as successful as I am now, is because of that. I used that necessity, I formed a new skill, and I focused more on the solution than the problem. So use your fear, use your scarcity, and turn it into abundance through necessity. If you have the same fear and the same scarcity, you're missing some awareness. For me, it was always money management and how to make more. I wasn't abundant because I couldn't create wealth. Now I can, and I don't feel nearly as scarce. I don't feel nearly as trapped, and I deal with way less fear because I have a new skill to what Alan just said.
Amen, brother. And my last point here, I know we got to go because we're at time here, is it's never as bad as you think. So in that moment, oh my God, $9,000, how are we going to handle that? Kevin ended up selling his old car, and got that. I think it ended up being like $3,000 or something like that.
I think it was
and
two.
Then you went and got another. What was it?
I think it was two. I talked him up.
Talked him up. And then, yeah, I think we talked about it first.
You helped me talk it up.
Yeah. So, got the two, went and put a down payment on a new car, $180 a month for the new car. Mm-hmm. It's all good. And then pay insurance and all that. The point is that when you go in the closet, the dark closet, you realize that the grizzly bear is a teddy bear. And once you have awareness to that, you start looking in those dark closets more often. Right? What you think is a bag of snakes is actually a bag of, I don't know, chocolate bunnies.
Gummy worms.
Gummy worms. There you go. Gummy worms. And so very last point here, at Next Level Live, my mom was there. And I pull my mom aside and I say, Mom, thank you so much for doing the registration table. I appreciate you. I just want to warn you, for lack of better phrasing, there's going to be some pictures of Dad on my PowerPoint. And so she lost her husband when she was 30, so I knew that would really trigger her. And bring up a lot of memories and a lot of emotions and all that. And so I say, Mom, like, this is my speech, this is my story, and I'm going to own it. But I want you to know in advance. I love you, and I hope that you know. And she said, this is your thing, Alan, go do it. Yeah, she was uncomfortable. Okay? Yeah, she had emotions. Yeah, we cried that day. Almost everyone in that room cried that day. But it wasn't as bad as we thought. And now my mom and I are more connected than ever. She's texting me about all these investments she's doing, and we're in a really good place. So my point is that the monsters in the closet are not real. Just go and face them, because they're only going to grow in your mind, and they're not real. Michael Jordan said, limitations like fears are usually just in your imagination. So you got to go look, and that's what I'll end with, is go look at your fears in the face and transform them into abundance, because you can't unless you face them.
Next Level Nation, for all of April, we are doing a giveaway, okay? It's hard to get reviews in the podcast world because a lot of people listen to a lot of different shows. We have many great reviews. We want to get more reviews so we can help more people. When you tune in and you see a show has 500 reviews, you're more likely to listen and take that show seriously. So this is what we're doing. At the end of April, we're going to give a $100 Amazon gift card away. All you have to do to be entered is to leave us a review on Apple or Spotify or whatever it is. If you're listening to this repurpose, you can click the link in the show notes. If you can get the Love the Show link from the iCloud notes and put it in the chat, I appreciate you very much. If you send us a copy of that, screenshot it. You can send it to Alan, you can send it to Amy, you can send it to my email, you can send it to Alan's Instagram, wherever you want. you'll be entered to win. And at the end of the month, we're going to choose one person and give them a $100 Amazon gift card. Help out your boys. We love you. We appreciate you. We're grateful for you.
And when you review the show and win that gift card, you can buy your next book to the Next Level Book Club. Huh? No, I'm just joking. But seriously, no. So Group 6 is opening. April 19th is the very first session. We already have 5 spots filled. We've already got the private WhatsApp group going. We actually just had someone new sign up today, which is awesome. This will fill up. We will not be doing another group until 3 more months from now. Join that. If you feel alone, you feel misunderstood, you're not consistent, you're not reliable, you're not accountable, this group is for you. Join us. Bi-weekly coaching sessions with Kevin and myself, an assistant coach, the one and only Greg Johnson. It will be the Mario Kart booster. At the end of the day, you're not going to do it just for you. I've seen it time and time again. I coach people all over the world. It takes more than just you to stay accountable. That's why we do the Fit Pick Challenge. That's why we're doing all this stuff. The team is unbelievably consistent because they don't want to let the team down. That is what group coaching is designed around. If you want to stay consistent, you've got to be on a team of consistent people. So join us. The link should be in the comments below.
And the show notes.
And the show notes.